What's up, everybody? Back in the studio again today. We're going to be looking at Chapter 8 of the Neverending Story again. Today we're going to be looking at how to add sound effects or Foley sound and how to add a score to your recordings. So I guess basically the way that I approach adding sound effects is while I'm reading through the chapter, what I'll do is I'll pay attention to what's going on in the scene, right? I'll look out for moments where the narrator is explicitly saying that a sound is happening, but there are instances where it's not explicitly explained. So you kind of have to pick and choose what you think would be the best to bring to the recording to help bolster it and help make the listener get deeper into the story, right? So not every sound that could possibly happen in any possible scene, I think, is necessary to put in. A lot of times you can really bog down the recording, and it doesn't always work as well as you would think. So what I tend to do is just focus on the things that I would think would draw the listener further in. It's not like a motion picture, like a film, where everything's on screen, and say you're watching a movie and these people are walking down the street. Well, what if you don't hear footsteps or some sort of sound, from the scene? It can kind of take you out of the moment. But in this case, in this medium, I think it's more important just to focus on key sounds, like I say, ones that will help bring more to the story and help the listener get further in to the story. So I think what I'm going to do is basically I've been collecting Foley sounds. I've been collecting sound effects for a little bit. So I've got some store of sounds already. Typically what I'll do is if it's something that I can record in the house, like in my house, then I'll try and attempt to do that. I'm kind of limited as far as my good microphone is a wired microphone, so I can't really lug that around the house to look for things to record. So things like maybe doors opening, I could do from this room, things like that I'll try and record. But typically what I'll do is just look around on the internet for sound effects. There are a handful of sites that you can get Foley sound from for free. They're not always the greatest quality. I feel like there's more sites that you have to sign up and pay a subscription fee. And maybe those sounds are better quality. Not that the ones that I'm using aren't. You're just kind of limited as, let's say I was looking for a horse galloping sound. A lot of times what you'll find in these free sites is they're sounds of horses, but it's not what's the word? There's lots of for a lot of times it'll be a poor quality recording where there's other noise going on, like white noise or things like that you don't really want in your scene. You just want the clean sound, and sometimes you can't find that. There are instances where I know that what someone did was took two halves of coconuts and just clopped them together and recorded that as horse galloping sounds. Which, maybe that would work in some instances. It didn't sound like totally fake, but you could tell that it was someone holding some coconuts. So you run into issues like that looking around on free sites. But that's typically what I do. I'll just go around and look and see if I can find some good sounds, and either download them if that's possible, or what I can do with Audacity is you can change the type of type of recording. I forget the exact details about it, but you can change where Audacity is recording from, either from your microphone or from the sound card. So you can just play a sound through your speakers and then record that, export it as a WAV file or whatever, and then import that back into your recording. So let me pull up some stuff and get situated. I can't really do this one-handed, so we'll be back. All right, so let's take a look at this first moment where I'm going to add some sound effects. So let's take a look.
High in the air rode Atreyu, his red cloak flowing behind him. His blue-black hair fluttered in the wind.
So, in this moment, the narrator is explicitly telling you that Atreyu is flying through the air on Falkor's back. It talks about his cape flowing behind him and his blue-black hair flowing behind him. So this is a moment where I feel like we should add wind sounds. So what we'll do, I've gone ahead and pulled up the sound itself. What I'm going to do is find the place here in the recording, and place the little cursor thing there, and I've already brought it in one time before. So what's happening, at least with Audacity, you have to bring in the file, just like drag it into the window, and it'll just import it at the very beginning of the recording. So what I tend to do is then I'll copy that and then delete it, and then find the moment where I need the sound, place the cursor, and then paste it back in. So that's what we've done here. Let's see what that sounds like.
The Never-Ending Story, Chapter 8, The Wind Giants. High in the air rode Atreyu, his red cloak flowing behind him.
Right, so, you know, that this will work here. I probably don't want the sound going the entire time unless all of this scene is in the air. What you can already tell just by looking at the waveform is this is much louder than our voice recording here. So what we'll want to do is select it, and there's ways to go in and just kind of edit it. What I can do is, I don't want to do that. I want to bring down maybe like 7 dB, and we'll preview it.
High in the air rode Atreyu, his red cloak flowing behind him. His blue-black hair fluttered in the wind. With steady wave.
So what I'm going to have to do is go through and listen to the recording with the wind sounds and make sure that they don't cover up too much of the narrator or any of the voices. Like I said before, if this scene continues to be in the air, then what we're going to have to do is elongate this somehow. What we can do is copy and paste it. So I've already copied it. So we'll select here, and we can paste another one there. But watch what happens here.
Waking became a dream, all hazy and blurred. Shadowy mountains pass below him.
So there's an obvious end of the sound file. It kind of fades out a little bit, and then the new file starts pretty abruptly compared to the ending of the previous one. So what we'll have to do is go in and maybe cut a little bit out of the end of the first file, or the first set of sound effects, and then paste in the new one somewhere in the middle, so that they feel like they match up. We can also bring the volume. We're going to have to bring the volume down some, and if you keep it in the background, and any sort of like blips or like weird moments in the sound, after doing all that editing, if you bring the volume down and make sure you've got some sort of talking going on over it, it should be okay in most cases. The other thing too is that we're going to have music over this too. So a lot of the mixing happens in the moment here as I'm adding sound effects and stuff. Some mixing does happen towards the end before we master everything and export it. But So right now we've got some sound with the wind, and I'm going to go ahead and tweak some more of this and find some more examples for you guys. Alright y'all, so I've gone ahead and added all the sound effects that I think are appropriate for this chapter, most of which ended up being atmospheric sounds, like weather, wind and rain and thunderstorms, things like that. In every chapter, if you've read this book, you know that it's the story is about a kid, Bastian, who is reading this story. And within each chapter, there's moments where it cuts from the story that he's reading and back into reality. So he's in an attic in his school. So there's always like bell sounds and wood creaking sounds that need to happen, doors closing and opening, things like that. One thing that I found interesting for this particular chapter was that there's a scene where there's like people in some sort of weird procession. So there's drums and flute sounds and bell sounds, things like that, that I had to search a good deal of time for, and I wasn't really able to find the sounds that I wanted, but I'm working with what I have. They're just what I ended up doing. I found some drum clips, and I had to copy and paste them a bunch of times. But as you can see, if you look closely, the waveforms get bigger. They start kind of small and they get bigger, and then they go down again. It's a procession, so I was thinking, okay, so the procession, like the parade type of thing, they're far away, and then they get closer and they go far away again. So to do that, all I really did was I went in and edited the file so that it was quieter, and I took a lot of the treble out so that it sounds kind of like muffled, like it's far away. And then as the clip goes on, you know, they get closer, and so the sound needs to get louder. Just something that needs to be taken into account when you're doing these types of things. Again, it's all about context, with like what's happening in the story, and trying to make it sound realistic. So here's just a little clip of what's going on here.
A shiver ran down his spine. The procession consisted mostly of night-hobs, kobolds, and ghosts. There were vampires as well, and quite a few witches.
So they're just, you know, simple like little hand drum sounds. Just imagine like people, you know, in a parade, like walking down a street, hitting drums and stuff. So that's kind of the idea there. And that's pretty much it for this chapter. There were a couple other things that I had to add. Footsteps in different environments. Atreyu earlier in the chapter is walking on grass, so I needed to add some grass sounds. And then later, at the very end of this chapter, he's running on a stone road, so I had to find footsteps that sounded different than walking on grass. So, you know, that's kind of how you have to approach it. I'm kind of done for the day. I put in a good amount of work today, and I haven't added any music yet, so I'm thinking maybe tomorrow or the following day I'll get around to putting the music in, and I'll bring you guys back in, and that should be it. After that, it's just a matter of mixing it all together and mastering it down to one waveform. So when I get to it, I'll bring you guys back, and I'll see you then.